So 70% cacao is 15% of the recipe is 10.5% cacao. Okay, so what if we increase that? What if we say use...
Meet William,
is 15% is 13%.
a man who set out on a simple journey to make brownies,
That'll give us 18% cacao.
and in doing so, stumbled down a rabbit hole of chocolatey proportions.
20% cacao. That's a whole fifth cacao. But is that too much?
He attempted to find the ideal cacao percentage, but does such a number even exist? Or does this mission simply make one go cuckoo for cacao?
Only 16% cacao?
Want to have some fun? Watch.
Watch out because I'm Cuckoo Pot, Cocoa Puffs! Cocoa Puffs!
Am I in frame? How do I tell that? Hello. It's me, William. Lewis, Carol, I'm glad the brownies I made for your dinner party were a hit, and I know you're absolutely dying for the recipe. So let me show you how to make them, right here on camera. Look at me, just a regular Julia Childs. Bonjour! We're having fun. Speaking of fun, let's get to those brownies. And the first thing we need for a good brownie recipe is cocoa. So make sure you get the good stuff, but not cacao though. That is completely different.
Even though both words have most of the same letters slightly rearranged, there are some distinct differences between cacao and cocoa. However, one of the similarities is that they are both a specific variety called the Theobroma cacao. Cacao has the least amount of processing. It is simply picked, shelled, fermented, dried, and aged, whereas cocoa can go through all those steps but is also roasted to reduce bitterness and acidity, something that less processed cocoa is rather sensitive to, as it turns a dark red when exposed to an acid, a process explained in more detail in Part 41 of the 1993 series Chefing 101. A treat for the taste buds and the eyes, red velvet cake is adored by pastry patrons all over. But why is it red? This is a chemical reaction that occurs when you take a chocolate cake recipe and instead of making it with milk, you make it with buttermilk, or add in a splash of vinegar to set off the same reaction. A reaction with a chemical isocyanate. Then working with purple-blue foods, adjusting the pH slightly can greatly adjust the color of the end results. For the reddest of red velvet cakes, many bakers will simply dye them with the addition of beet juice or a commercial food coloring, as this process does not take place in modern, more processed cocoa. Interesting stuff this cocoa is. It's like pure chocolate. I've never just tried it on its own though. But you know what they say, no time like the present. Let's see what a spoonful of this tastes like. Bon appetit. Oh, it's so dry. Oh, I breathed it in. Oh, that's unpleasant. Oh, I think I gotta sit down. Okay, you might have to wait another day for this recipe, because that was ill-advised. Let me tell you, don't go on eating pure cocoa now. I have to go over to the doctor, make sure I didn't do any permanent damage. Oh, classic William blunder.
Hi, I'm Chef Henrio. Man, I've seen cacao do terrible things to people. They'll just try it once and it'll take them over, and then that's all they ever want. Most people are fine with the 70%. They don't know the difference between the higher and lower. But every now and then you get somebody that is so obsessed with getting to the 100%. It's terrifying. I just don't get it. You are paying more for something that is not much better. You want the mix-ins, and that's what makes it real smooth.
So you wouldn't just take a whole spoonful of this, is what you're saying?
Oh, cacao!
I'll mail myself someplace where there's nothing to make me go cuckoo for my favorite cereal.
The exact details on how far back the consumption of cacao goes are unclear, but there is evidence of it being consumed as far back as 1500 BC. It was held in great reverence by the Mayans and Aztecs, who would not only consume the beans, but the latter would use them as currency as well. It wasn't until 1500 AD that this bean would make its way to Europe, and not until the 1800s would it be consumed in bar form.
Hot cocoa time. Hi, I'm Swiss Miss, and this is my Swiss Miss Instant Cocoa Mix. It's the easy way to make hot cocoa.
So eating pure cocoa is a bad idea. But I looked it up, and it turns out back in the day, they used to mix it with water, creating something called drinking chocolate. That is much smarter. If you mix it in water, there's less getting into your lungs. So before we go back to the brownies, let's give that a try. Grab a little water, take a spoonful of the cocoa, give it a little mix. Okay, now that looks tasty. Like a homemade yoo-hoo. Oh! Oh! Oh, that's... I mean, it's better than eating it. I think I might need a recipe for this. Trying to use up that bag of masa in new and exciting ways? Try it in hot chocolate by making a champurrado, one of the oldest ways to drink chocolate. To make it, start with 1 part corn flour and 6 parts water. Mix the two up in stages to avoid lumps, like you're making a roux. Heat that up to a simmer and let it thicken up a bit. Then add in sugar, dark chocolate, milk, and a little bit of spice. Cayenne or cinnamon will work well here. Let everyone get to know each other for about 5 minutes and then adjust for sweetness and thickness. If you want to follow the ancient texts as they were written, feel free to omit the milk and substitute the sugar for honey. And there you have it, the Aztecan drinking chocolate, Champurrado. When we return, we'll take a deeper look at what goes on in a modern chocolate bar right here on The Dark Side of Baking, Cuckoo for Cacao. Hey you! Yeah, you! Are you a fan of one or more of the following? Combat sports, trampolines, pools? Then we have just the sport for you, the Trampoline Pool Noodle Duel! Contested on the Trampoline of Doom! Watch it on demand now! I've been thinking a lot about cacao percentages lately. You go to the grocery store, you don't really see too many numbers outside of 70%, which seems to be the standard for dark chocolate, even though legally to be dark chocolate, it only needs 35% cacao solids and 10% to be chocolate at all. But you don't see anyone selling 35% cacao bars, and 50% is also a rarity. Obviously, no one's going to brag about 10%. Then there's 100% cacao chocolate, which usually just goes by baker's chocolate, like it's ashamed or something. And on the other side of the spectrum, you got 0% solids and white chocolate, which should be ashamed because there's no cacao solids in there. It's just made with cacao butter. Yet, it's allowed to call itself chocolate just because there's a qualifier in front of it? Milk chocolate has a qualifier in front of it, and that's upwards of 40% cacao solids and 12% milk. We live in a world where you can have 40% cacao milk chocolate and then swirl in 5% of white chocolate and still have it technically be above the 35% threshold to be dark chocolate. Is anything real? At this point, you might be wondering what goes into a 70% cacao chocolate bar. Starting with the obvious, 70% of it is a combination of the cocoa beans ground up and the cocoa butter extracted through the grounding process. The other 30% being mostly sugar. Other additives can include vanilla, as is the case with Lindt, some combination of emulsifiers and preservatives, typically under 1% of the total weight of the bar, make up the rest. As mentioned earlier, the formation of the chocolate bar is quite a recent invention, only being available since the 1800s. Invented by one Joseph Fry of J.S. & Sons Confectionery, although several chocolate-like foods did exist prior to this. but despise how damp it makes your beard. Fret no longer, for I, Joseph Fry, have a solution, my guy. Eating chocolate. Look at my babies. Oh, what's that? You said Francis Collier already did this. Okay, let's try a piece. Incredible! It tastes like Now let's try a piece of mine. Yummy! And I can say all of this because advertising standards don't exist yet. So to one John Cadbury who thinks he can step to me, I have 2 words for you. You! My babies, it's their chocolate!
Huh.
Hello? You don't say. You don't say. You don't say.
Who was it?
He didn't say.
Well, what did he say?
He said munchy, crunchy, chocolatey Cocoa Puffs.
So I know this was supposed to be a recipe for the best brownies you ever had, but this cacao rabbit hole goes way further than I ever thought possible. You know cacao beans? Not actually beans. Even though if you put a little cacao in your chili, it tastes pretty good, like a bean would. Except cacaos are seeds. You know what else is a seed? Beans, except they're seeds specifically from the legume family. And that's why peanut is not a nut, but a legume, and also a bean. That's why chocolate and peanut butter go so well together. They're both seeds. You put a seed with a seed, it's gonna taste pretty good. It's all making sense. But you know what's not making sense? Coffee and cocoa are completely different. And coffee beans are also not a bean because they're a seed. Even though both of them highly caffeinated and enjoyed as beverages. Hot beverages. And you can put them together. You can do a 30-70 split of cacao and coffee. You can do a 60-40 split of coffee and cacao. You can do a 90-50 split of whichever one you want. You can do a 100-100 split. The options are endless. And also, coffee wasn't even the first coffee. Mochas were. How long have you been around for? Did Anubis imbibe in this fruit of the gods? There is only one way to find out, and that's by becoming Theobroma itself. That's right. I'm gonna go out there and start my life anew as a cacao tree. I hope you understand. Let the rest of the friend group know that they're gonna be eating subpar baking for the next little while. Goodbye now. But when I return, I will get to that brownie recipe. That is good water. Where did you say it was from again?
It's tap.
Oh, Tap Sweden? So things got really out of control there for a while. I kind of lost sight on why I got into this in the first place, which was to get Carol and Lewis the best brownie recipe they've ever had. It's been years since I started on that. Being the adult that I am, I take responsibility for my actions, and I'm ashamed. There's no other way to put it. They went this long eating brownies that might as well have been from the dumpster. But I did recently get it done, so they can put that dark chapter of their lives behind them. A lot's gone down since I first started recording those tapes all those years ago. I mean, I don't gotta tell you guys, you're a documentary crew. You know all the details about it. That's what the focus of this is all about, right? The last couple years, the factory. But funny story about that, we actually had to build 2 separate factories. One that we worked out of and one for the regulators. And let me tell you, we should have just worked out of the one we built for the regulators. Transferring chocolate to the factory via a river, that was incredibly impractical. And people would fall in it all the time. A kid once wrote to us telling us that his chocolate bar is mostly peacoat buttons. Do you know how many people need to fall in for that to happen, specifically wearing a peacoat? I don't actually have a number handy, but it's got to be at least 3. Luckily, our PR team was able to play this off as a contest, which gave us a great idea on how we can wash our hands of this mess. Something that our staff did not do nearly as much as they should have.
So what's next for William?
Well, now that I moved on from the cacao and the chocolate portion of our company is in the reliable hands of a 12-year-old, it is just old-fashioned sugar confections from this point forward. And by the way, guys, we don't have to be so formal. You can just call me Willie. Willie.
Next time on The Dark Side of Baking.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can come back here next year when I try this fruitcake that I made earlier. A full 365 days from now. Will it be good? Okay, let's finally make some brownies. First thing you're gonna do, take some butter, add some chocolate chips, and then melt them together. You can do this step on the stove, you can do it in the microwave, you can even just breathe on it for a while if you really want to. I probably wouldn't share those brownies, but it's a way of doing it. If the butter melts before the chocolate melts all the way, not a problem, just give it a couple minutes, the chocolate will melt on its own. We're gonna make a small one here, so we need flour, a healthy amount of sugar, some cocoa. No cacao in this recipe, unfortunately. But you can throw in cacao nibs if you really want to. A little pinch of salt, a little baker's secret here, espresso powder. That'll really make the chocolatey notes pop. And depending on how much you put in, it'll make you pop too. Whisk all the dry stuff here together. You'll see a lot of recipes that tell you to use multiple bowls. You don't have to use multiple bowls. That's Big Bowl trying to sell you more bowls. All you gotta do is make a well in your dry ingredients. Like that. Well, not quite like that, because when I moved it, it collapsed on itself. But you get the gist. You know what a well looks like. You made it to the end. You're smart. Now in the middle of that well, we'll crack some eggs, splash of vanilla. Measure with your heart, but this stuff is strong, so you know, don't let your heart get a little out of control. More vanilla is not better. Throw in that butter mix from earlier, and let's whisk it together. Start from the middle. Make sure the eggs are nice and broken, and work your way outward. I like turning the bowl as I do this and just keeping my whisk stationary. Is that better than doing it the other way around? I don't know. That should look like a nice smooth brownie batter. See, 1 bowl, that's all you need. Now these brownies on their own will be just fine. But what I love doing is just throwing a whole bunch of stuff in there. Different kinds of chocolate chips, pretzels, if it's around Halloween time, just whatever candy I can get my hands on. Does it make for a better brownie? Sometimes. But it makes for a brownie full of surprises. No 2 people are gonna have the same brownie experience in the same tray of brownies. Again, is that better? I don't know. So in this one, I'm throwing in some butterscotch chippets, a few white chocolates. Got some of these peanut butter pretzels hanging around. I'm just gonna give them a little crush. There's gonna be a whole one in there now because I dropped it in there. Now a fancy way to grease the pan would be to use butter and flour, do a little dusting around the corners. But I'm gonna make this quick. Okay, this pan is almost definitely too big for this amount of brownie batter, and that's okay. Now it just has to go in the oven at 350 degrees, and then you get the brownies that you saw in the opening credits. And if you missed them, rewind it back and watch the opening credits. And maybe just in case, watch the whole video all over again. Anyways, enjoy your brownies. Bye.